everyone, it's Miss Brenner. I hope you're all doing well and staying happy and healthy. I'm here to go over step 2 of our Socratic discussions that will be taking place this coming Thursday. So this is in preparation for our discussion on Thursday. Step 2 is that students will read poems in preparation for pathway-based Socratic discussions. So if we were to look on our Schoology page, in the TKMB pathway folder, we are going to be doing activity 2 today, which is poetry. You've already taken poetry notes and we've practiced a little bit, so we are now going to be looking at different pathways of forms of poetry. So you'll have the options of class structure, racial tension, and mental health as you have prior. You may pick a different pathway if you prefer, or you can stick with the same pathway. You will read the 3 poems that are in the different folders, and some of them have links to YouTube videos because they are slam poems, so you might want to listen to them. I think it gives it a little bit more meaning when the person reads it to you, just because of the different tones that they use, but that is once again dependent upon the folder. You then have a worksheet depending upon the pathway that you choose, which is the Poetry Pathway worksheet. It looks like this, so you will highlight the content area that you read in whichever pathway. You will answer the questions about the types of poems, the rhyme scheme and the rhythm and meter, use of irony and use of figurative language, author's tone, reader's mood for each of the poems, and then we have discussion questions. These discussion questions are going to be used in our Socratic discussion on Thursday. So you will need to respond to these discussions and then post them in the Schoology discussion. So if we look under week 14, you'll see under activity 2, Socratic groups 2, poetry pathway discussion. You would post both of the discussion writing prompts in this discussion, so that way your classmates can see them to create questions for your group. So if we look under these discussions, what I'm asking you is, after reading and analyzing the 3 poems in your chosen pathway, how do you as the reader relate to the poems? Is there one of the 3 poems you connect to more than the others? Explain why and how the author uses the poem's mood to create this sense of emotional investment. So in that prompt, we are focusing on the style of pathway, what we have previously covered, your own personal opinions, and any kind of resource information you may have to add to why that one poem is so important to you and makes such a connection with you as a reader. The next one is, after reading and analyzing the 3 poems in your chosen pathway, what connections can you make between your prior conversations with your classmates about this pathway and the nonfiction and fictional literary pieces we have been reading? So when answering this question, I would ask you to consider, how do the poems in this pathway connect to the relationships shared by the characters in the novel To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee? Remember that these pathways are central to the novel as well, which is why we are looking at other pieces of literature to relate to the novel To Kill a Mockingbird. Another thing I would ask you to consider is, how do the poems in this pathway support or defy the conversations shared previously with your classmates about the topics of either mental health, racial tension, or class structure? These poems are definitely emotion-based. Most poetry is, and so it may support what you already felt, or it may oppose what you were feeling about the topic, and that's okay. We can disagree with authors. We should just also reflect on why we disagree, and if there is a central reason as to why they feel differently than we do. How do statistics and research support or defy the emotional motive of these poems? Do you think the poems reflect the topic in a way that creates a two-way street method of communicating ideas, or do you think the author has abused the art of poetry to become a one-sided platform to shut communication down? So poetry has for a very long time been a method to start conversations. I would like to hear your opinions about whether you think these poems do a good job of motivating people to talk about difficult pieces of conversation, or if you think that it is a very one-sided view on it. Alrighty, so those are our writing prompts. So as we go back to our directions, sorry, I'm clicking between things. There we go. So once you have completed those discussions, you're going to put those in the discussion post. This includes sharing poetry analysis posts on Schoology, reading and watching presentations of their group members' research projects, and connecting deeper meaning between the poems in their pathways with the novel To Kill a Mockingbird. So, students will organize Socratic questions to be used in a discussion with a group of students. If we were to go back to our Schoology page and look under week 14, once again, here's the poetry pathway discussion. You are going to post your discussion prompts from the worksheet here. Here is the slide project submission. So we did this all the way back in week 11. This is going to be used to help create questions, so that way we as a group on Thursday can have deeper conversations, not only about what we are currently doing as we are chapter 25 into the novel, but also so we can reflect on some historical events that we researched way back at the very beginning of the novel and make some comparisons about how we felt about the events at the beginning and how maybe we are making deeper connections now. If we were to look at the Socratic group discussion questions, you're going to need to read your group's posted discussions related to the poetry pathways, explain whether you agree or disagree with their opinions about that, create questions about the poetry pathways in relation to the response, and then we are going to annotate the response in the final column, just like we were doing before. So that means by midnight on Wednesday, you should have your questions completed, and then you will receive them back on Thursday, so that way you can annotate the responses you receive from your group members. Once again, some groups will have more members than others, so please just make sure you check back to see. Currently, since we are going to be doing poetry today in class, I do not have your groups set up yet. I want to see what pathway you decide to read today, which will determine me making the groups. But it will be in the same format it was before, so it'll look like this. These are your groups from part 1, not part 2, so please keep that in mind. These will be updated online, so that way you will have new groups to read about. Part 2. So, other questions that you will need to create in preparation for our discussion on Thursday. You're going to need to look over your group members' projects. So you are going to see what they researched prior, as to have a deeper conversation on Thursday about poetry and about the central thematic areas of To Kill a Mockingbird, which would be mental health, class structure, and race tension. Once again, there are more rows than you probably have members, but please just remember, if you should have more than 5, just add another row. And then step 3, read or watch the poems in your chosen pathway to construct discussion questions about the content of the poems in general, or the poems related to the novel To Kill a Mockingbird. So you would write the title of the poem in this column. You should have a minimum of 7 questions about the poem pathways. So there are 3 different poems in each pathway. You need 7 questions. You can focus on specifically 2 poems if you prefer, or 1 poem, but I do expect you to have 7 questions about those poems. And then you are going to annotate your group's response about the poems and how they relate to your opinions about the pathway and your opinions about the novel To Kill a Mockingbird. Alrighty. So as we go back to our directions, students will complete a question prep worksheet, which is what I just showed you, prior to the discussion to demonstrate preparation for the discussion and ensure the group discussion will be organized. So our discussion is on Thursday. Your worksheet for question prep is due at midnight on Wednesday. Once again, these questions will relate to the group's independent research slide projects, the group's poetry pathway analysis discussion posts, and the group's personal connections between the pathways, poetry, and the novel To Kill a Mockingbird. The small groups will be organized by your instructor, which is me, to contain 3 to 4 students who have all read and listened to the same class content. That would mean articles, videos, poems, the novel To Kill a Mockingbird. Once again, I try my best to organize the groups. If you are put into a group that you do not think you belong in, I had 2 students that I accidentally swapped last time. If that appears, please let me know. I want you to be able to communicate with your group members, and if you are in a group that you didn't read the content for, it's going to make that difficult. So please just let me know, and I will switch your group as quickly as possible. Alright, the shared post will be taken from the To Kill a Mockingbird Poetry Pathway worksheet and will be distributed to all members of the group prior to discussion. So please just remember, whatever you put into the discussion is being viewed by other students. If you are not comfortable with that, please let me know. So that way we can try and organize your writing so that way you are more comfortable sharing it. But anyhow, that is the end of the directions for part 2 for our Socratic discussion on Thursday. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask me, and I would be happy to answer any questions you have. Alrighty guys, I will talk to you later. Bye.